Oh,
hello, everyone.
It looks
Dean.
like Dean might be frozen.
Oh, it looks like
there.
he's frozen. Yeah.
Yeah, he's been doing the Max Headroom thing all night, and he's quiet. Dean.
Oh, I guess I'll start. Hello, everybody. This is Silverline. And tonight's special guest is Mike Barron, a legendary writer. Oh, you're back.
And he's
no,
gone.
He's going to go out. Okay.
Yeah, Dean's going to reboot because that usually fixes things for him. Yeah,
And,
that's usually what happens.
Mike is somebody that I have known for well over 30 years. We've worked together many times. And we actually tried to do our own book at one time called Rue. Never got off the ground, but I still have all the materials and all the scripts and stuff.
Well, I'd like to rewrite the whole thing.
That'd be great.
Why not?
Hi, everybody. I had a little technical difficulties there at the beginning of the show, but I'm back, and I'm Dean Zachary. I'm supposed to be hosting tonight, and now I am. So I want to reintroduce the cast here, and we'll get back to the legend Mike Barron, who, of course, needs no real introduction. We have with us tonight the skeleton crew, the core of Wednesday Wham. We have Barb Kaalberg, the Empress of the Inks. We have Rob Davis, the paragon of pencils, and Aaron, the master skeptic, Humphres. Yes, he is indeed.
Master skeptic.
Yeah, he is, my friend. He is, and that's why we love him. And of course, the legendary, the man who almost needs no introduction, Mike Barron. I like to call him Mike Nexus Barron or Mike Larry Barron. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Mike, for joining us
Round
tonight.
of applause.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And we appreciate your time tonight. I want to set the table and just let everyone know who's watching that we're going to talk to Mike about as much as we can get covered in the hour that he's with us. But I'd like to touch base on some things just in terms of what got him into comics, how he broke into the business, some of his early work, his inspirations, his advice for those aspiring to create and become comic book writers themselves, and comparing the industry a bit to the way it was then and the way it is now, and the pros and cons of that situation. So that being said, let's start by just getting an idea of, Mike, how'd you get into this crazy business? How'd you get into writing comic books? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I always wanted to be a writer, and there's a long story about that. I wanted to write novels and comics. I always loved comics. My first job out of college was smoking marijuana for the government. I answered an ad in the back page of the Boston Phoenix looking for volunteers to participate in a study offered by the National Institute of Mental Health in Harvard. And we lived on a hospital ward for a month, and we smoked government-grown marijuana every day, and we took a battery of tests. It was just like college. And when I got out, I wrote that up and I sold that article to the Boston Phoenix. And soon they hired me as an editor. And I spent 7 years in Boston working as a journalist. I'm not a hard journalist. I wasn't on the trail of government corruption. I was mostly a music editor for the Boston Phoenix. And it was my job to go out night after night and listen to musicians and interview them and write about the music, which I love. I'm still doing it. But I broke into comics when I moved back to Madison. I was working at a health insurance company in 1981 when I got a phone call from an editor who said, there's some guy down here trying to sell us his art. And I know you like comics, so you should probably give a look. He gave me the number. It was Steve Rude. I phoned him up. I said, dude, let's meet. And we met on the steps of the student union. And he opened his portfolio right there on the steps. And I looked at it and I thought, whoa. And I said, what do you want to do? He said, well, I want to do comics, but I can't write. I said, well, I want to do comics, but I can't draw. And we were very lucky. We were in the right place at the right time because Capital City Distribution, the second largest comic book distributor in the world at the time, decided to publish their own line. So I knew they wanted a superhero. So I went home and I brainstormed Nexus. My first thought was, what if every time the protagonist showed up, somebody died? That would make it dramatic. And of course, that's not a brilliant insight because life and death is the stuff of drama. And it's why we're inundated with cops and robber shows and lawyer shows and medical shows for over a half a century. But I wanted to make him a sympathetic character. So I created this backstory that he was a reluctant executioner of mass murderers driven by an insane alien to act out his dreams, because at night he would dream of these mass murderers, and when he woke, enervated, exhausted, and frazzled, he knew that he had to take that guy out of the universe or the dreams would recur until they drove him mad. And I wrote the first 12 pages by drawing them out by hand, which is how I wrote comic books for 25 years. They asked me to what advice I would give to an aspiring comic book creator. And I would say, whether you're a writer or an artist, there's no better exercise than drawing the comic out by hand. And I mean, you just take a legal pad, you draw the big square page, and then you break it up into the panels, however many you need. You think about it beforehand. You don't do it arbitrarily. And then you start with the first panel. And remember that the number one job is to entertain. And you entertain by grabbing the reader's interest, by making him care. And the reason I recommend this is because it taught me so many things. It taught me how much weight a page could bear. And by that, I mean, how many pictures, how many words, what were you comfortable with? It also taught me rhythm and dynamics, the importance of blowing a page up or shrinking it down. By that, I mean devoting a page to a single or two big, powerful issues, or dividing it up into 6, 7, 8, or 9 smaller panels, usually when people are talking. But when people are talking, the talk itself has to be interesting. It can't just be boring exposition. You always ask yourself, well, if this were a movie, how would they do it in the best possible case? And when you do that, you should think of the master movie makers like Martin Scorsese or Francis Ford Coppola. You think of their movies. You don't think of modern movies, because most modern movies aren't very good. And I'm not going to point to any. I'd be happy to point to modern movies that are good, that do understand the importance of dialogue. But to go back to it, so if you're a writer and you think, well, I can't draw. Well, I can't draw, really. I tried to learn to draw myself. I tried to teach myself to draw for years with my own drawing board and all the anatomy books and life drawing classes. And I got up to the point where I could draw well enough that any artist or editor could see at a glance what I was doing on the page. And because of that, artists and editors loved the way I wrote comics. I no longer do that. I write full script now for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is when I sat hunched over a horizontal surface for all those years, it hurt my back. And I don't need to do that anymore. So I write full script now. But I recommend that.
That's great advice. That's
Yeah.
great advice. You collaborate with, Steve Rude. When you guys created Nexus and when you collaborated there at the beginning, did you have an idea in your head? Like, to me, that's such a singular and memorable costume. Did you have that in your mind?
Yes, I did. I wanted him to have the lightning bolt down his chest and to have the ruby goggles, like Cyclops of the X-Men. Those were my additions, and Dude did the rest.
Okay. Because it's very sleek, very memorable, and it just speaks to the tone and the sci-fi fantasy of it. I'm going to take a moment here to comment on some of the viewers here. Stephen Brown, Art says, hey, everyone. Hey, Mike Barron. Pops Van Zant says, show the shoes, Mike, and then laughs.
Pops, the shoes are in the other room. I can't go get them now, but next time I'll bring them out.
Next time. Stephen says, I have one of the Nexus books. I have lots of the Nexus books, Stephen, and they're all awesome. Needless to say, Nexus put you on the map. And then from there, that, of course, was an independent title. And then you segued into what we would call now the mainstream in terms of the big two? How did that all happen?
Well, Carl Potts called me up out of the blue because he'd been reading Badger, and because of that, he asked me to write Punisher, which I wrote for 5 years. And
Yeah.
Mike Gold was my editor at first. After Capital gave up the Ghost, they realized they didn't know what they were doing, and we'd signed our rights away. So they sold the rights to First Comics. And the only reason that Steve and I own the copyright and trademark to Nexus today is because Mike Richardson returned them to us in an unprecedented act of generosity. I do not own the Badger, but First Comics is willing to work with me if I want to do new Badger material, which I do. I'm just so jammed up at the moment that I haven't had an opportunity, although I started a script. I'm always working on at least a half dozen projects at once.
I understand. And when you got to hustle when you're freelancing and doing what creators do for a living. You're fortunate enough to do it full time, but it's always a kind of hustle in a way, in terms of, produce. Tell me a little bit about when you're working with Potts on Punisher. Was he a heavy-handed editor, or was he like, go, Mike, go? I mean, was it a creative open field, so to speak?
Carl said, I only ask that the stories make sense, that they proceed from A, B to C to D in a logical manner. I approached The Punisher as a straight crime comic. And for the first 3 years, there were no superheroes, robots, science fiction, or time travel. And it wasn't until Carl got kicked upstairs and I had a new editor who was a gimmick guy that we started to bring in the X-Men and a few Ultra elements, which I hesitate to mention, but I will. Black Punisher.
Oh,
Y'all remember the
okay.
Black Punisher? That wasn't my idea.
Actually, no, but
wrote
that's okay.
I wrote it.
Well, what about, so then you're doing that for Marvel, and then you start doing work for DC. Is that how it happened? It's just
Mike
like
Gold moved from First Comics to DC, and it was Mike who brought me in to write The Flash initially. And I was very happy about that. And I had a long history with DC. I wrote many characters for them, including Dead Man. I wrote a few Batmans, Hawk and Dove.
Yes, which I
think
worked
somebody there knows Hawk and Dove.
Yeah, I had a great
Dean
time.
was the artist on those books.
Yep, had a great time with that. You had a great take on that. It was much more grounded. It was less spandex and more realism. It was, if I may, the Chris Nolan version of Hawk and Dove.
I'd love to take another crack at it.
It would be fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So what about Barb? Tell me now, you've worked with Mike some. Talk about you guys working together on some projects.
We first worked together on Badger, and I don't think I ever asked you how you ever came up with Badger. I mean, Badger is a local hero here in Wisconsin. He's a Madison, Wisconsin, or right outside of Madison in Barneveld, local hero. So of course he's very popular in this state because he's the hometown boy. Hometown boy.
Hometown
superhero. Yeah, she's driven crazy.
Yeah. Well, that's what was so entertaining about Badger for me was Mike's dark humor, which if anyone's read Mike's stuff, has a penchant for dark humor, but also the unpredictability of what Mike writes is so refreshing. You just almost cannot, I can't predict what he's going to do next. And there's a compelling nature to that.
And not only on top of that, but Badger has multiple personalities. So you never knew if you were going to get the architect or the gay guy or Badger Norbert or,
Dark humor is like food. Not everybody gets it.
Exactly. I just absolutely love it. Yeah. But what was nice, though, was that, in a way, I'm not going to claim that they're doing this, but I would claim perhaps some people over at Marvel were inspired by some of your work on Badger because, the leptest version of Moon Knight has a few interesting little characteristics that remind me of Badger. Pops Van Zant says, there are layers to Mike's writing. If you don't read it 3 times, you missed something. Yes. I would agree to that. I would
Well,
agree to
you
that.
know, I believe a writer has to surprise himself in order to surprise the readers. So I'm constantly surprising myself.
Well, so what inspired you? Like, if you know, a lot of us. I'll tell my quick little story. I was inspired by primarily Neil Adams and secondarily by Frazetta and other illustrators at the time, but then by earlier Brandywine illustrators, and then later comic illustrators like Jim Lee and Mark Silvestri. But who inspired you as a writer, or was it a comic writer, a novel writer? Talk to us a little bit about your inspirations.
Well, my three main literary illustrations are number one, John D. MacDonald, number two, Carl Barks, and number three, Philip Jose Farmer. And for anybody who wants to understand the modern comic or how to write a comic, study the work of Carl Barks. He was a master.
Yes.
There's not a wasted
Yeah.
panel in any of his work. It's just brilliant.
Okay,
But-
and
but
so
then-
that drove you to tell. You said, "I want to tell stories. I want to tell visually spectacular stories like these guys did." That's kind of
Well, in the case of John D. MacDonald, it was his Travis McGee series. And because of that, I have my Biker series. And I'm not the only one. There are a lot of American writers who write modern noir crime novels that were inspired by John D. MacDonald. And Biker is my tribute to Travis McGee. Of course, it couldn't be more different in tone or subject matter, except that they're both hard-boiled crime novels about tarnished knights who serve as a court of last resort for people who've been wronged and can't get redress anywhere else.
Well, I you know, that's interesting, and I'd love your take on this. You're a little older than I am, but you know, you grew up in a time where there were a lot of what they call men's paperback adventure novels, and when I was a kid, I don't know how you were about this, but when I was a teenager, 10 to 15, I wanted to be a 35-year-old, you know, badass. I didn't want to be a teenager. I couldn't wait to grow up and be that guy, you know, the guy on the cover of the adventure novel or Indiana Jones or whoever. And so if a comic was written for kids, if it was intentionally juvenilized, I took offense at that and wasn't even interested in that. I think a lot of people in my generation were that way, where I didn't care what teenagers were doing. I cared what the badass 35-year-old dudes were doing. Is that fair to say for you as well?
Well, if you're going to write action fiction, men's adventure fiction, which is not to say it's not aimed at women too. I have a lot of women readers that love the books because a writer has to imagine every point of view. And this is so important. Don't let anybody put barriers up against what you can write. Should Shakespeare have been allowed to write Othello? Should Alexander Dumas have been allowed to write The Three Musketeers? These are absurd questions, and we have to recognize them for what they are. But if you have a limited imagination, then stick to what you know. They always say, write what you know. Well, that's true up until you get to a point where you know how to research and you know how to imagine every point of view. And I think that the most effective writers can imagine any point of view. And that's important.
That's a good point. It's an excellent point. The fact that a good writer can write for anybody, about anybody. A lot of times I'll have conversations about this very subject, specifically talking about young adult fiction, and people say, I'll say, well, that was terrible. And the person will say, oh, well, Dean, that wasn't written for you. And I'll say, well, I'm sorry, but I think good fiction can appeal to everyone.
That's right.
And, you know, I use the example primarily of J.K. Rowling, writing Harry Potter. I just was told, hey, these are really cool novels. They're well written. So I read them, and I was drawn into the world she created. even though I know nothing about British boarding schools
Because of
or
her
anything like
seductive narrative voice and the convincing
Sure.
universe that she builds. And every writer wants to cast as wide a net as possible, which doesn't mean that I'm writing for everybody in the world. I think also every writer writes to please themselves foremost, and I write the type of stuff I would like to read.
Yeah, I like to quote Todd McFarlane a lot in when we talk about art. These guys are sick of hearing me say this, but I'll throw it out there again. I like to use the filter, does it look cool? Because when Todd was drawing Spawn, he wasn't calculating anything about Spawn. You know, would this be real? The cape, the chains, the skulls, the this, the that. No. Did it look cool? Yes. Is the fantasy he was writing, is that appropriate to the look of the character? Yes. And it worked, and it's still going. So I like to apply that rule of if it looks cool, draw it within the tone and limitations and context of the story, obviously. But exaggeration can work quite well, and it does for Todd. I mean, Todd's story, he talks about that. It's like, well, I wasn't the best artist, but I was probably the most tenacious at trying to get work. When you were out there, hustling for work, let's say it's the mid-90s, and you're busy, you're doing stuff, right? How was it different then in terms of, creators getting work and keeping a regular gig versus what you have to do now? Talk to us about that, because you were saying earlier you're very busy.
I am now.
Now, and you were probably really, really busy in the mid-90s as
No, I
well.
wasn't.
So you weren't as busy. Okay,
No, I
tell
fell
us
out
about.
the ass end of the industry. I didn't know how to manage a career. I'm a different person now. I look back and I see all the mistakes I made. I'm not blaming anyone. It just
Sure.
happened. But there was a period of 10 years there where I had to take any job I could get, including janitorial and unloading automobile bumpers. I had a wife who was sick, and she had huge medical bills. And so, and I couldn't get any writing work. People wouldn't answer my letters or queries or anything. So I did what I had. And what happens now in the past couple of years is a big surprise to me, in that my career seems to have taken off all over again.
Cyclical.
It started back when I finally started selling novels. I don't make a lot of money off the novels, but I'm very proud of them. And it's important for me to get them out there, and I'm building a devoted readership. But in comics, I started to get a few jobs here and there, but things really didn't happen until I cooked up Florida Man. It's a series of novels I wrote for Wolfpack Publishing. They're the funniest books you'll ever read. I guarantee you can spit up milk through your nose. And when I originally conceived it as a comic book series, and I wrote 5 very detailed issues. And when I was done, I realized I had no prospect to publish these, but I had a very detailed outline for a novel. So I wrote the novel, and I sent it to Wolfpack, and they snapped it up. And there are 3 of them out now. And then I decided to go back to comics and try to turn it into a comic. And I don't know how it happened, but I hooked up with Chris Brawley, who's the guy behind Bleeding Fool. And Chris is a genius at marketing and also a videographer. If you look at the videos he did for Florida Man and for Thin Blue Line, they are the best videos that any crowdfunded comic has ever seen. And I can't wait to see what he's got coming up for Bronze Star, which is the next issue we're going to launch, which is a weird Western I'm doing with Pat Broderick. And anybody who's seen the art on my Facebook pages has been blown away. It's the best work of Pat's career.
He's stunning.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm looking forward to that. Give us a little pitch, Mike, of the subject.
Well, it's Harley Thronson used to ride with Quantrill during the Civil War. And after the war, he became a hunter for the army, supplying meat. But then he gets in a poker game, and this hothead pulls out on him, and he kills the guy. And it turns out he's the son of a very wealthy landowner who gets up a posse, and they start chasing Harley. They chase him into Canada. And he ends up in a little tiny town at the foot of the Rocky Mountains called Cobb's Gap. which used to have a gold mine that's all played out. Nobody goes in the mine, and nobody wants to talk about why nobody goes in the mine. But the town is very peaceful. And the reason the town is peaceful is because the sheriff is a werewolf. But that's not, that's
Okay,
not
that
the
one came out of
main,
left field.
that's
Wow,
not
I
the
love
main
that
thing
idea.
about the story. That's not the real weird part about the story.
Well, that's not the weird part.
No.
No, that's not
That's
even the
great,
weird part.
though.
That's
I
awesome.
love that.
Incidentally, today is the first day of Police Week, National Police Appreciation Week.
Okay.
And we're doing a final push on Thin Blue Line. If you're interested
Okay.
in it, it's at thinbluelinecomics.com. It's going to blow your mind. Just go there and look at the pages. My artist is a full-time police officer. I've known him for many years, since before he was a police officer. And Jeff Slemons, who inked it, is a genius in his own right. We're very proud of this book, and I guarantee you that it's the most gripping story you're going to read all year, and you're going to read it over and over again.
I ordered it, and I can't wait to get it. Tell us a little bit about what happened when that book was announced. You got some press, man. You got some TV coverage.
We
on
were
that
very
piece.
lucky. We were embraced by a number of conservative sources, and then one day I got a call from Fox News. And they said, we'd like you to appear on Fox and Friends tomorrow morning to talk about your pro-police graphic novel, because being pro-police was so freakish in today's atmosphere, which is bass backwards and upside down. I don't have to tell you why. We all know why.
Right.
So I appeared on Fox and Friends, and from then on, it took off, and we're very gratified with the results. And we hope to duplicate those on other books going forward, because Bronze Star is about a peace officer as well.
It's interesting. Did it lift all boats? Did the press for Thin Blue Line then get people to buy the other material that was out there? Did you see a bump in interest in your other material as well?
Oh, no. The thing about Florida Man, that was a hard sell, because it's neither fish nor fowl. We all know what people like. They like skin tights, superheroes, horror, romance, science fiction, time travel, monsters. So a pure humor book, no matter how funny, is what's this?
Yeah.
But once you start reading, you're hooked. I mean,
You've also written a book about a dog too, right?
I do write. I wrote a book called Disco about a boy who adopts a mongrel pup and trains it to be world disc dog champion. I'm very proud of it. It's a wonderful book. It's currently without a publisher. And, I have no problem selling my horror or science fiction or thrillers, but nobody wants the lone dog book, because they're all interested in series. And that's it. It's just done in one. And I have a handful of copies yet, but we are looking for a publisher, and I will get that thing published sooner or later. It's just too good not to. I mean, if you're interested, go to Amazon and look up Disco by Mike Barron.
Okay.
Check it out for yourself. Read the reviews.
Okay. I will. Now, a little bit about animals. I remember Badger, the character was about, not only could he speak to animals, but he rescued animals. Am I remembering that correctly?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a very popular theme these days. I've been hit with 3 comics recently about animal adventures. One is The Calico Cat. Another is a project being pitched to me that they would like me to write. And I forget the third, but it's a popular theme. And as well it should be.
Well, you're a doggy daddy to at least 2 dogs.
Yeah, 3 dogs. We got 3 dogs here. I'm surprised they're not bothering me right now. It's probably because they're well fed. And they've been to the park twice today.
Maybe you wore them out.
So, all right. So tell us a little bit about what avenues you use for promotion these days. Back in the day, it felt like it was more of a gatekeeper system. And, you had your networking and you met the right people or what have you, and then they called you back and it was your editor and you made friends, and maybe he gave you more work, maybe he didn't. Usually they went to somebody else or whatever, depending on sales. But nowadays, with it goes without saying that we have an international marketplace via the internet and so on. I mean, does it feel to you like this is a wide open space now? I mean, you can connect with whoever, whenever,
Yes, it
however.
does. Because as you know, there are two worlds of comics. There's the corporate world of the big two and all the lesser publishers. And for the most part, they're completely intolerant of anybody who's not woke. There's a whole bunch of us who've been blacklisted. And then there's the other world of crowdfunding.
Right.
And there's Comicsgate. Now, there are elements of Comicsgate which I'm not crazy about, but none of those elements have anything to do with the Comicsgate Kings, which is the core group of Comicsgate, who are all respected artists. Ethan Van Sciver, Graham Nolan, Art Thiebaert. Who else? I have to go look.
There are quite a few names. But there's a lot of these independents popping up. You have I don't know if you're familiar with Allegiant out of locally here out of Arkansas, Little Rock. Mitch and Betty Breitweiser.
I wrote the Saints for him. It's coming out now.
There you go.
Yeah,
so,
I'm very encouraged by Mitch. He's got a wonderful line. The comics are superior in every way. Writing and art, they're just superior in every way. And I urge you to pick them up. They're being distributed in Walmart right now. But
really?
His distributor shafted him, and he's looking for a new distribution. He may have one now, for all I know. But Mitch is determined to continue, and they've got some wonderful titles. Bass Reeves,
Red
by
Rooster,
David Williams.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
it's Silverline. We're here. We are convinced that the independent comics are the way of the future.
Well, I am too.
The big corporate entities are going to fail eventually because they can't seem to get out of their own.
In the drain now. Nobody wants to buy their books. It's just unbelievable how they keep trying to shove this crap down people's throat. We don't want it.
Yeah, I just emailed my comics guy and told him to take one of my titles off my list because it's just unreadable.
Yep. Same here. I go to the store and it's all independent stuff. And it's fun to just talk about that instead because again, nothing's calculated. It's all just out there. It's the Wild West and I love it. Now what we're going to try to do.
Florida Man has been picked up by American Mythology. It's in this month's previews and it'll be in the stores in June. And we've turned it into 3 copies. And I urge you to check it out. Ask your store to order it. I guarantee you're going to laugh. I guarantee you will spit up milk through your nose, even if you don't drink milk.
Even if you don't drink milk. Give us a little short, tag on Florida Man. Set it up for us.
Now, Gary Duba is just a good-natured redneck living down by the swamp with his girl, Crystal. He likes to get high, he likes to get drunk, he likes to have fun. He's been in and out of trouble with the law his whole life, non-payment of child support, drunk and disorderly, stuff like that. But he'd give you the shirt off his back. In many ways, he's the most admirable character in the book. Now, one day he gets a phone call from Crystal's mom, says, Gary, Crystal's in jail for getting drunk at the Waffle Hut, getting naked at the Waffle Hut and licking the manager. So Gary has to raise the $500 needed for bail. So he sets out to sell his prized Barry Bonds rookie card, but things get out of hand. There are alligators, there's road rage, there's drug dealers, there's everything you can imagine. A lot of these stories are ripped right out from the Florida Man stories. Because the reason I wrote the book is I always say I don't choose my stories choose me. And every time I went online, there was another Florida Man story. And if you want to see him, hang on a second. Anne's coming home. I'm just going to turn this off while the garage door shuts.
No sweat.
Okay.
It does seem like Florida has, some very colorful characters in it. So,
and there's a site called floridaman.com if you want to check them out. And there are thousands and thousands of stories now. And I took inspiration from a number of them. One of them is Police discover a couple living in Walmart attic for 2 years, cooking meth, living the high life. They'd hauled up a big flat screen TV, and they were getting all the channels. And that's in the third Florida Man novel.
Oh my God.
That's great.
There's also Gary has a lot of trouble with invasive species.
And
in the
snakes, spiders.
But especially the Burmese python.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's not native to Florida, but is now so pervasive that once a year they have the python hunt. It's a week-long hunt sponsored by the state. With
This is real stuff.
pythons.
Real stuff.
Yeah, and that's
Wow.
coming up in the second Florida Man graphic novel.
You know, when I was a teenager, a family moved to Florida for a short time, and it was right around the time that Jaws came out, Mike. And so, what do you know? The summer Jaws comes out. What do they have in the panhandle of Pensacola, Florida? They have a shark rodeo. And boy, you want to talk about a competition for who can bring in the biggest, nastiest, scariest looking shark. And you'd walk up and down the pier every weekend, and they'd be strung up by their tails, and they'd have their mouth propped open with a piece of wood, and you'd have people selling the boiled jaws of the teeth, tiger sharks and black tip sharks and hammerheads and this. It was fantastic. I wouldn't trade that. I was just the right age for all of that. I must have been, I was 12. And I tell you what, I loved it. Went out on a boat, got sick as a dog, loved it. Absolutely loved it. Had the best time. But yeah.
You threw up over the side, and that drew the sharks.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. Chum
We
the
caught
water.
one.
Chum the water.
So tell me, have you spent time down there at all to sort of get the atmosphere? Okay. Yeah, he's on mute. He's coming back soon. I know he
I've been to
is.
Florida many times.
Yeah.
Been to the
So
Everglades.
Oh yeah? So you've done the whole fan boat through the glades and all that?
No, I never have, but if I get another chance, I certainly will do that.
Fantastic.
There's a show called Swamp People. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've seen it. It actually takes place, I think, in Louisiana, but every show's the same. Yeah, there's a big bull gator up in Hall's Landing.
Yeah.
We got to go get that bitch. So, and they head off, and then they show the gator grabbing the chicken off the tree, and then they reel the gator in, and then they show shoot him, and they show the person with the rifle sighting, but they never show you shooting the gator between the eyes because there's a restriction against that apparently. So they always have this stock shot. They have bang and water splashes, and then they haul the gator into the boat. And I think there are 5 or 6 seasons, but every episode is exactly like that.
You know what you just described are so many of the shows now that are on Travel Channel that would be great inspiration for some of your stories. I mean, they've got monster hunters and swamp hunters,
Watch them.
Ice road
ghost
truckers.
hunters, and it's just great. Oh, it's
There's one in Texas about feral hogs.
Oh, yes.
Essentially swamp people with hogs. Yeah, we got some bad feral hogs over in the South 40.
There's actually a documentary here in Wisconsin on the Beast of Bray Road. Do you remember that?
Yes, I watched that. I watched that special. Tell us about that. Have you been on that road? Either one, Mike, have you been on that road?
Never heard of
No,
it.
but I want to go find it now. It's not that. It's over in Lake Delvin.
Oh.
You're going to have to look it up now, Mike, because old Wisconsinite.
You're gonna have to email me the name of that doc so I can.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, it's some mysterious red-eyed creature running around here in Wisconsin. Everybody
It's a lot. It's a lot scarier than Mothman. This thing is like the way they describe it is like a werewolf.
Yeah,
and,
kind of like, yeah.
Yeah, the multiple reports of it are pretty consistent. You're like, okay, all right.
Sitting on a campfire and you see red eyes. And looking at
Let's not forget the Hodag.
There you go. Or the Wendigo.
Tell us about the Hodag.
The Hodag is a mythical Wisconsin monster that's got horns and big jaws, and the legs on its left side of its body are longer than the legs on the right side because they call it a side hill Hodag, so it can run around the hill and stay level.
Yeah, it's probably like in the Ozarks. Yes, yeah. We got something like that in the Ozarks too, because of the
That's
Ozark Hills. So you can go. Yeah.
that is cool. I love local legends. You know,
Well,
we've got
and of course, it's a character in the Badger.
Yes.
oh yeah.
That's where I've. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Huh.
So that brings me to this question. Tell me a little bit about the horror material I don't know if you're writing any of that now, but tell me a little bit about horror that you've written and who inspired you. Were you more inspired by Stephen King or by Lovecraft or
Well, I
you know?
love those guys. But when I set out to write my own material, I really had to rely entirely on my own sense
Sure.
of what was scary. And I've been trying to write novels for 30 years without much luck. And then I had that period I described where I couldn't get any work and I didn't really write for 10 years. And finally, I came around to it again. And the first horror novel I wrote was called Helmet Head. It's one of the very few books that you can describe with 3 words: Nazi biker zombies.
Okay. All right.
But then came Banshees, which is the biggest book I've ever written, about a satanic rock band that comes back from the dead. And I was writing that, and one day, and I suddenly realized I have it. I can see the story. I know what I'm doing. And I'm very proud of that. And of course, these are all available on Amazon.
Amazon.
In fact, Wordfire Press is my publisher for these books. That's Kevin J. Anderson's
Right. Yeah.
publishing arm. And Kevin, of course, is famous for writing the Dune novels, plus many other brilliant works. But the other
Star
two,
Wars, Star Trek. Yeah, a lot of them.
Scorpio is about a ghost who only appears under a blazing sun, and it'll scare the shit out of you. And Domain is the ultimate haunted house story. Likewise, I'm very proud of those because I know they are scary books. Once you pick them up, you won't be able to put them down.
Tell me a little bit about Domain. Now, I haven't read a good spooky haunted house story in a long, long
I
time,
have
and I
an
love
agent.
them. Hi.
Hi,
It's
Ann.
my
How
wife,
you
Ann.
doing,
See
Ann?
on Facebook usually.
I
Yes.
know.
I'll go away now.
She has to see me on Facebook.
No.
Domain was inspired by a real house. It's called Sowden House. It was designed by Lloyd Wright, who's Frank Lloyd Wright's son. And I urge you to Google it and go look at it.
Where is
Sowden
it?
House. It's in Los Angeles.
Sowden House.
What's the
Okay.
legend behind it?
Yeah, what's the story?
Well, it was designed for an eccentric movie producer, and I use that in the book. But there's a book called Black Dahlia Avenger by a man who was a Los Angeles police detective for 30 years. And he believed that his father was the Black Dahlia killer. And he grew up in the Sowden House, and he believes the murder took place in the Sowden House.
I read that book.
And that was part of the inspiration for the novel. But a lot of it just came out of my own head and my own experience and my own fears. And if you read it, you'll see what I mean. I mean, it has nothing to do with the Black Dahlia, but it has everything to do with that house.
So when you were a kid, I assume, like most of us, you and your friends dared each other to see how far you could go into the local haunted house and who was going to chicken out first and who was going to make it inside and all of that, right?
No, not in South Dakota. We didn't have any haunted houses. We would dare each other to jump off the roof of a houseboat into the lake. That's what,
Well, yeah. Well, when I was growing up, it was more how far could you jump off the ramp on your bicycle, right? Like Evel Knievel. So
yeah.
we were doing a lot of stupid stuff like that. But we also had, the local haunted house, and you'd have to see how far you could go in. And I remember one I went into, and I got into the front room, and all of a sudden my eyes adjusted to the light, and I look over on a shelf, and no lie, there's a crystal ball on the shelf. And, when your imagination's going crazy, I thought I saw something forming in that crystal ball, buddy. I was out of there, What'd you see? What'd you see? not sure. There's a crystal ball in there. There's a crystal ball. So, the stories grew out of that. But
Probably your own reflection.
my own
Yeah.
reflection, yeah. Yeah, but
Here-
as a kid, that's how it is.
Yeah.
Here in Madison, it's the psychiatric hospital. That's the big haunted place here.
Has that been
Mendota.
covered? Has that been covered on any of like the Ghost Adventures or
Sure.
the Ghost
Oh,
Adventures?
I have
Badger.
that issue. Agent Cub says I have that issue of Badger. I'm guessing we're talking about the Hodag issue.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would imagine.
probably.
Hodag was in several issues, but Badger was in the Mendota State Mental Health Facility, except we called it Nakoma, because there's Lake Nakoma is the other town adjacent to Madison. And in fact, there's a couple of horror issues of Badger, which has to do with the ghost of Bascom Hall, who's this creature that lived in the tunnels beneath.
Underneath. Mm-hmm.
And the tunnels are real. I was in the tunnels. They're very creepy.
Oh,
Yes.
did you experience anything down there other than just?
No.
Okay.
No, but yeah, the tunnels are real. So
Yeah.
all the local kids here know about the tunnels.
Yeah,
Ah.
and I was inspired by a novel by Peter Abraham called Hard Rain. If you want to just read a terrific thriller that'll blow your mind, Hard Rain by Peter Abraham.
Okay. So, where are we going in the future in terms of your create? You're just going to keep writing novels and comics, I hope.
Yeah.
Both, right?
Yeah.
Good.
No, actually, where's that badge? This is a recreation. Where is it? This is something that Jeff did as a commission. It's a recreation of the very first Badger cover. And of course,
wow.
that's the castle that they lived in Barneville.
Before or after the tornado?
Before and after the tornado. But we're rolling out, crowdfunding is my future. And as I mentioned, Bronze Star is up next. And after that comes Private American. And Barb, I sent you the cover to both these books.
Mm-hmm. I sent them to Dean.
Dean, I don't know if you can bring up that cover to Private American, but it's terrific. And what is Private American? It's everything Captain America should be, but isn't. And when we first meet,
American. Okay.
Private American. When we first meet him,
you.
He's down on the southern border intercepting fentanyl smugglers, which is what Captain America should be doing if he were written by somebody who knew what they were doing.
No, tell us what you really think.
All right. Now, has anyone contacted you about these? Seem like such good, either TV series or mini series or, are you looking to maybe parlay this into something?
I don't
like
parlay.
that?
They have to come to you, but they have come to us and we're waiting right now. I can say that a producer has taken out an option on Biker.
Oh,
Cool.
fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Can you throw any of that artwork up that I sent you, Dean?
I am requesting Aaron to do that. My iPad Pro has problems interacting.
Oh, you want me to?
Yeah, if you could, Aaron, I'd appreciate that.
I can't
My
do it.
iPad is
Would you
it's gotta be-
appreciate it? What can I get out of it?
Buy you a beer.
I'll give you $5.
$5? Okay, I'll give you my address afterwards.
Agent Cobb wants to know if I still have the rights to the Badger. I never had the rights to the Badger, Agent Cobb. First Comics owns the Badger, but they're willing to work with me.
Okay, which one do you want me to show first? There's three.
Private American.
Private American.
Okay. All right, got it.
This is, you guys got to check this out. This is such a cool cover.
Yeah, see, only these two guys have the ability to throw that artwork
Why
up,
is
so
it-
I sent it
Hold on
on.
a second.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I don't have any of the access, so
Hold on a minute.
I'm
All right,
just
give me 2
assuming-
seconds.
Sure.
1001, 1002.
Yeah,
1002.
Wait, show me.
Sure.
Okay, well then we'll just do this. Okay, this is gonna look weird for a second because this always does when we do
Yeah, it
this.
pops up with a desktop first, doesn't it?
It tops up with
Yeah.
the infinity thing, which
Yeah.
looks-
Yeah.
Which looks weird, but cool. There it is.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Yes. So
Oh,
cool.
nice. Nicely
Yes.
done.
Yeah, Gabe El-Taib colored that. I'll be seeing Gabe tomorrow. He's an old friend of mine,
Who did the pencils and inks?
Richard Bonk.
Okay.
Mm.
All right.
Yeah, and we're having that recolored because Marcos is Cuban. He's not a Black American. He's Cuban. He's an Cuban American. But Gabe didn't know that, so we asked him to lighten it up a little.
Right. It looks
Yeah,
cool. I mean, it
more
looks like
brown than black. Yeah.
a lot of action. You know,
It's a very action-packed book.
Yeah, that one reaches out and grabs at you. That's good. That's a good cover.
Yes, it is.
Show us the Badger cover that looks kind of spooky and almost Halloween-ish.
Oh,
Aaron,
that's
That one?
That's the one that I inked over. Oh my God, who did I ink that over? Jim Hall?
Was it Brian Pelletier?
No, I think it was Jim Hall.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's a great cover.
Oh, that's
really
cool.
good.
Yeah, I
Very
have to get
cool.
up close because my iPad image is pretty small.
Yeah, those are my inks.
That's cool.
And then let's show everyone the Thin Blue Line cover as well. This is a really
Yeah, I think
that
I
is
saw that
sweet.
on. Yeah, I saw that on the Facebook page. Yeah.
And you're saying, Mike, this artist is a law enforcement officer.
Well, this cover's by Sergio Cariello.
Okay.
But Joe Arnold, who drew the book and drew the original cover, is a full-time police officer.
Wow. That's cool. Very, very cool.
Yeah, show that Florida Man cover too if you can.
Let me see. Is this the?
Did you send me that one?
I only have these three.
Right.
Yeah, I don't have that. At least I'm not seeing that.
Yeah, I didn't have that one.
I can get you the Florida Man cover. Hang on.
Okay.
Because this is going to be.
Oh yeah, I can shoot it over to Barb, and she can shoot it to you.
Oh, it won't take a second here. So, all right. So you've been approached.
No, it's on. Oh.
And what, are you going to have creative control over some of this stuff? Are you going to demand it?
I control this completely. These are my properties. I created them and I own them.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing until.
The way to do it these days.
You will get me.
I got it to you. Check your messenger.
Okay.
The Florida Man cover.
I see
Hopefully you see it. Good. Hopefully, all creators need to learn the fact that, you've got to get a good attorney to negotiate your creative control over stuff, or at least your own demanding it for yourself. Is that right? Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay.
There's the Florida.
There it is. That is so cool. Oh, isn't that great?
That's
Todd Mulrooney did that cover.
Very nice. Yeah, I've seen that. That's great. I love it.
That is fantastic. Guys, go check out Mike Barron's books. Check out his comic books. If I got hooked on Mike's stories with Nexus, but any of them are great. But what I loved about Nexus was the tragic Shakespearean feel of it. Just, I love the fact that this guy, he didn't always want to be the cosmic executioner, but he didn't have a choice. He was forced to do it. And there's a lot of stories where he gives it up and somebody else does it for a while. I mean, it's a great series. Mike, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to be with us tonight.
Thank you,
I know we're
sir.
coming up on an hour. We appreciate it. Everybody, let's give Mike a round of applause here. Thank you, Mike. Again, check out Mike's stuff, and appreciate you being here with us tonight. Does anybody else have any questions before we say goodnight to Mike? Anybody here? Aaron or Rob? Any questions for Mike?
I think that the man pretty much takes care of promoting himself and answers all the questions before you even ask them. So
I know, right?
Any questions I had for him, he's already answered. So,
already done.
Thank you, Mike. You're very good at.
Ron says hello.
If you want a really good example of being confident in your own abilities to promote stuff, Mike is it. Mike is the ultimate a promoter of
Yeah,
his own
It's
work.
not always thus.
That's right.
No, that you've gotten better at it.
Yeah.
Tenacity,
Hopefully we're all getting better.
perseverance.
Yeah.
You know, that's,
we all
that's
get
what
better,
it's about.
or we get a lot worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Good night,
true.
folks.
Good night,
Have
Mike.
a good one, Mike.
Night, Mike.
Thank
Good to see
you.
you.
Good to see you. So, guys, really creative individual. Anyone who's done work with Mike on projects, it's incredible what you learn from people that you collaborate with. And what I learned with Mike working on the Hawk and Dove series was I could not predict what he was going to write next and where the story was going to go. And it was that little story I did. I think it was 5-issue mini. You didn't know where he was going with it next, and it just got stranger and
Those
more
are the best
fun.
writers that you
Yeah.
can't, because I've watched enough TV, I've read enough books that a lot of times I can anticipate what's going to happen in the story,
Yes.
especially on episodic TV. I
Yes.
go,
And
oh,
one of my-
this is
one of
what's
my-
going to happen next.
Yeah, one
But
of my
with Mike's
husbands.
stuff, you
Yeah.
have no idea.
One of my husbands and my favorite sayings when we're watching TV is like, "Well, we saw that coming a mile away."
Right.
Exactly. Yep.
So we were talking earlier today. Barb and I had a little text back and forth, and Rob, you and I did as well.
Yeah.
Let's see if you feel comfortable, Rob, maybe doing a show where we watch you draw. Would you be cool with that if we set it up for a possible
Yeah.
future
The
broadcast?
only trouble I have with it is since I work, on my desktop here or on my drawing board, I have to set up my iPad to kind of look over my shoulder. I'll have to play with that and see if I can get it to work that
Do you
way.
have
or
one
not.
of the bendable things
I
that will hold it?
don't. What I have is I have a tripod with a clamp on the top of it that will hold my iPad. Now I can move that thing. I'll even show you here. It'll go like that.
Oh yeah,
straight down.
yeah.
So I could do something, but it's getting it so that I don't knock it over as I'm working. So I'll have to play with it. I'll have to play with it some and see if I can get it to work.
It would be fun because what I've noticed as we've been doing the broadcasts is that specifically you, Rob, and Aaron are great at being able to work and interact. And that's quite a talent. I always had a tough time at cons, sketching and talking.
Oh,
I was either doing one or the other. It certainly didn't always result in my best work because I wanted to stay engaged with the fans, but then produce a decent sketch at the same time. And that's something that's not always easy to do. But
I've been doing it so long at conventions that it's just become kind of second nature now. I can crank out a sketch and talk to people as they come now. Now if they've got questions about other stuff on the table, I have to stop what I'm doing.
Sure.
And, get into that. But if
Right.
I'm sketching something,
I
they just
think it
want to
would-
chat for a little bit. It's cool.
I think it would be really fascinating for viewers to see how you interpret a script page and lay it out. Like look at what the writer says and how you interpret that and what the end product is.
Yeah, we've actually Ron Fortier and I actually put together a book with artist Gary Kato of Hawaii, who has collaborated quite a bit with Ron on a character called Mr. Jigsaw. We put together a book called How to Make a Comic, and it outlines all of those things. It shows it has like a 6-page script that Ron has written, and it's typed out, and then the story is encapsulated in Mr. Jigsaw himself is using one of his cohorts to pop in, who's a transporter, and they're popping in. So first he picks up the script from Ron and he pops into Hawaii, where Gary puts together. It shows how he puts together the book, and then they pop into my studio where I show them how I take it and put it in, digitize it, and then put it up at KD or at Kablam and publish it. So that we've done that. So I could
That's
I could
great.
probably put something together similar to that, because I've got breakdowns for the Boston Bombers book that I'm working on. I've showed it
Cool.
before, so I've got the page breakdowns,
Yeah.
and then I can show you. I think I've shown some of that before. I've even got another. I've got a page here that I finished as well. But yeah, I could show you how I do that. I'm sorry.
The current page that I'm working on for Divinity actually had 5 panels written, and we ended up with 4 panels in the artistic interpretation of it. So it doesn't always conform exactly to the script. The art
and it
doesn't
probably
always...
shouldn't always, because you're, a writer can try to think visually, but sometimes the artist can come up with some twist on that, where you either add a panel or you subtract one, or I've actually gone where I've said, we've got to add a whole other page. Hey, Brent.
Hey, Brent.
Howdy, gentlemen and lady.
Welcome.
Yeah, you missed Mike Barron.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was hilarious. He's always a character, always fun to talk to. But I wanted to say that I read the first issue. I got a little advanced copy because I know a guy. And I read the first issue of Cape Town.
Okay.
Yeah. Ooh. And rumor has it I'm doing an alternate cover for Cape Town.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, way. So I really enjoyed the story. I wanted to congratulate you on that. Kept me turning pages, and I really like what you're setting up there. And, you turned some of the superhero conventions on their heads, and it was just fun. It was a fun read beginning to end. So endorsement of our colleague's book here. It's just really good. I'm not sure. Do you know the schedule when it's due to come out?
I think Roland was talking July, I think.
Okay.
I heard. Was it lettered or?
No. I just had the inks and the script.
Oh, okay.
So I used those to sort of put it together and come up with a cover, and I'll have to send it to you once it gets presentable. But it's gonna be fun. You got some cool leading characters there, and that's all I'm gonna say. They're very cool, very nice. So good work. Good work. So we were talking, but right before we came on, also about doing some process broadcasts here in upcoming episodes. And what I was talking to Rob about is he has the skill, like Aaron does, of being able to work and talk, and sort of guide people as he's working. Sometimes it's hard to do. It's certainly hard to do at a con. But what I'd love to do is show an artist and an inker breaking down a piece live and talk about what they're doing while they're doing it. And so I was talking to Rob about doing that. I was talking to Barb, with this new technology too. It'd be cool for people who maybe they're iffy on, should I buy, an iPad, or should I buy a Cintiq, or should I spend that money and all that, to see it happening, to see you ink with that, and the adjustments you can make to do these incredible parallel hatchings, for example, that I can't do freehand anymore, and you were saying too, it adjusts the jitter on your hand.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say this, but I am of a certain age where my hand isn't quite as steady as it used to be.
I get a little pain in my hands, and I have to wear.
It's called essential tremor. It's very, very common, and it's not very bad, especially after a glass of wine. But
there you go.
If that works for you, go for it.
I do take medication. Wow. I do take medication for it, but it's very, very slight. But when I'm nervous, it really kicks up. So I'm hesitant to do it online. But the point is that it is very, very slight. I can tell other people might not be able to tell, but I can tell. But if I adjust the smoothing action on my iPad when I'm working on Procreate, it completely disappears.
Wow,
any trimmer,
that's excellent.
Yes, so the iPad will actually compensate for my age, which is going to extend my career, vastly longer. And I'm also teaching myself to color, which doesn't require quite the exactitude as inking does. So I am trying to keep myself in the game till the last possible breath.
Well, we hope you
that's
keep
cool.
going, and that's what we want to see. I want to see, even you can set your iPad Pro to time lapse. You can
Yes, I'm gonna play with that and see what I can do.
See what you can do, and then you can guide us through as we watch the time-lapse video unfold. That might be cool as well. Welcome, Wizard of Wordplay, Rory Boyle. Better late than never.
Hope I didn't miss much.
No, well, you missed a good interview with Mike.
Yeah.
He had to go after the first hour, but we talked a little bit after about we're going to explore some more process videos in upcoming broadcasts.
I like it.
Looking over the shoulder of Rob and also of Barb as they do their work, just to show some people, how we solve problems.
You could show me and Scott working and just our Word document when we're typing, you see letters appear and then backspace a lot.
Yeah.
And then
Backspace
type over.
Well, I was going to ask you guys as writers, because we have both you and Brent here tonight. How would you feel about, going through a page live of maybe a project you're working on or something you've already solved, and talk to folks on video about, originally this sequence was written this way, but what we decided was to change it to this because. Would you guys be willing to, literally, drill down on a single page and explain to us how you problem solved on some things?
Yeah, I would definitely be into that. That'd be fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that doable, Brent?
It'd be for everyone else, but it'd be fun for me. So.
Oh, good. Good.
Yeah.
Maybe a Cape Town page,
Well, Brent could just keep writing and I'll be like, wrong.
Yeah, that's stupid.
Do it again.
There's what I was looking
You're
for.
a terrible writer. Oh, wait a minute. Oh,
Where's your editor? Who's your editor?
So
who's your daddy? Yeah.
Who's your daddy? I'd love to get into that more because I think, I love giving this show a sense of variety where we do the fun stuff, we do interviews, we do fluff shows like, special event shows, but then we also get back to basics and creation. Aaron, are you working on something you can share with us just so we can kind of see, because you're always
the obsoletes.
Let me see. Can we see a page maybe and just kind of show us?
I can show
you. Cool.
That's issue 2, so I'm just going through.
Awesome.
So that's what I'm working on now.
Very cool. Very cool. I always admire people who can be on a show and still get stuff done. I'm more singular minded. I'm doing my thing. I'm doing this thing, and then I'll go over here and I'll do this thing.
That's one thing I can't show is that I will sometimes jump from the drawing board over to the computer to play around with. So we'll just be doing one aspect of it, which is the physical part.
What I'd love to see in your case, Rob, is because you've done penciling for so long and you're so good at it. I'd love to see, you're known for Star Trek, for example. It might be cool if you're working on a Star Trek commission, or better yet, a Silverline character.
Which I was while we were talking to Mike.
Okay.
I was actually working on one.
Show off a little bit. Let's see what.
Okay.
What you got done.
Let me see if I can get the reference. Here's what I finished today.
Okay. Oh, cool.
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
That is sweet.
Nice.
Well, and there's, I can show you if I've got it here. I've still got it. Yeah. Let me pull it out here. I've also got, let me push this out of the way so you can maybe see a little better. I've also got Kirk and Spock.
Yeah.
And this guy that's commissioned these wants me to do the whole crew.
Ooh.
So so I went online, and of course I looked up pictures of all these folks. And okay, here's the one I finished today. Here's what I.
Oh wow!
That is almost
and
surrealism, photorealism there.
Well, no, that's just on Photoshop. I took pieces from photos. That head is from the body's from one thing, and the head is from something else. So I go in and I put stuff together like that, and then I put it on a light box, and I've got a portable light box here.
Oh yeah, those are great.
I have one too.
Yeah, these are excellent. And you put them on here. You put it. I don't know how well this will come through, but we'll see.
Oh yeah.
I can set it really bright.
Okay.
And then I put this on here, and then a piece of Bristol board on top of that. And then I go in and I pick out the parts that are going to make it look. I try to use as few lines as possible to indicate what the character looks like. And so, can you see that? I don't know if you can or not.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I can see that you can. Yeah, you can see that. But and that's how I do it. And then I come back in after I've penciled it, and I use that photo to detail it.
Okay. Now, when you do a likeness, it's interesting that you say as few lines as possible. So what you're doing is you're being reductive, and you're using the most essential lines to cue the visual recognition of the character, right? So it's
exactly.
Less is more. Less is more in that case.
It definitely, especially with females, with women, because the more lines you put on a woman's face, it ages her.
Yes,
makes her look. It's most people don't realize this, but we artists realize that, especially after we've done it a few times. You draw a woman and you put in all these lines, and you go, she looks 90 years old, and she's 20. Because you put all these lines in. So it's a matter of knowing what to leave out. That's the trick. And that whole trick that I just showed you right there, I learned that in college in an illustration course, where and in that case we used what was called a Lucy machine. I don't know if those even still exist anymore now that we have computers, but it's essentially you would find an image in a magazine or a photo that you had, and you put it inside this machine, and it would project it, enlarge it, or shrink it to the back of a piece of glass, and then you would set a piece of acetate on top of that glass and trace and leave and learn what to leave in and what to take out. What's going to work the best to do the likeness properly and make it really look like the person. And go ahead.
I was going to ask you, sorry, as we advanced in terms of color technology, it's interesting to watch how people's drawing styles have adapted, because when I started drawing comics, hatching was the thing, because the colors were flat, and the way we established volume and light and shadow was through hatching. And as coloring became more sophisticated into the 21st century, almost everyone now, not everyone, many artists have evolved to a more, what I call a coloring book style, which is just mostly outline, and they let the colorist carry the weight of making volume through great graduated shadows and gradation. Did you find your work changing? Either of you guys, Barb or Rob, did you find your work?
What's fun is as the inker and the colorer, I pick stuff out ahead of time. It's like, I am going to just leave a bare hint of this, and I'll throw that in the coloring phase.
So where to put it when you come in with the color. Yeah.
Yeah, because I do both. So I have a picture in my head what the scene is supposed to look like. I'll ink the really important stuff. And for instance, there's backgrounds right now that Alex is trying to speed up, and so he's penciling the figures tight and just kind of indicating the background.
There you go. Yeah.
It's right now it's all trees and stuff, and I'll throw all that in coloring.
There you go.
I'm not inking it at all because I want it to fade into the background, so I don't want those sharp.
So no
black
lines around it. So no lines around it at all. That does make it fade into the background. Yeah.
Right.
Because I learned early on that the thicker line that you put around something, that brings that object closer into the viewer. So everything in the foreground has a thicker line than everything as it recedes into the background. So taking a line out completely puts it way back there.
So being the inker and the colorist has been kind of fun.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, and the book that I've done a color book myself where I was the penciler, inker, letterer, and colorist. And
oh wow!
So yeah, that Route 66 book that I did
one-stop shop.
One story with Ron Porter, a Tales of Route 66 story that he came up with, and I did everything except write the story. And that was interesting to learn that. And I don't do that real feathery, airbrushy type stuff. I do planes of color. That stuff doesn't excite me, doing all the airbrushy stuff. I don't think it's necessary to give form to the characters. It's useful, but that's not the kind of coloring that I do. And I appreciate the other stuff, but I like just knocking it out because people are going to read this fairly quickly anyway. So I just knock the colors in. But I admire somebody who could come in and do all that really detailed stuff where they start with the flats and then they come in and they're essentially layering the colors in.
Mine kind of looks airbrushy, but if you look close, there's only 3 colors on each thing. There's the mid-tone and then the highlights and the lowlights.
Okay, so you're not too far from what I do. I just
blend it a little.
Yeah, I do. It's a soft edge, but it's almost a hard edge.
Yeah, I don't use more than 3 colors on anything.
Yeah, that's essentially what I did too. I didn't try to go
light,
for
dark,
that,
and medium.
a lot of stuff, and then maybe a white highlight to bring out certain things.
Yeah.
What about you, Aaron? What about you? Do you? I know, you're doing the pencils and you ink. I know. Do you ever take a stab at color as well?
Yeah, my Goblins was colored.
That's right.
Me.
All that stuff's colored. So
yeah,
when you
all of that was me.
Do you do you do 3 levels like what they're talking about? A mid-tone color, a light color, and a dark color, or do you go more
highlights and shadow?
Yeah, I do light and shadow, and then I do highlights. But I just you can color Goblins. I did not because I let the cross hatching. I thought it was sometimes a little redundant to shadow everything, but the cross hatching is also doing the same. So I would shadow very specific things in there and let the flat colors play. Because I was adding a texture over the top of it with the old page. The old page was actually put at 50% over the top of my page to add another texture. So you can see the old page, like the stains and stuff through it. So there was a specific look I was going for. When I do my full-fledged colored stuff, I do my shadows on multiply. I usually do a dark blue or a dark red or a dark brown. And then I play with the opacity on the shadows. And then I do light, either a blue, yellow, light on overlay. And then you just add highlights. And then you just color the shadows in. So, yeah, and then I just go from there. And then whatever other visual effects I do.
Do you guys ever play with filters in Photoshop, like spotlight, things like that?
Yeah, but you do it very subtly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it in Photoshop or Fresco?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's
any program in particular? Because I know he has the whole suite. Has was Illustrator, Fresco. I've been trying to dabble with those two.
Oh,
Photoshop. I don't know what these guys use, but
I use
for
Procreate,
effects.
and I use a clipping mask to turn your black lines into a color.
Yeah.
So
you can do
color
that.
hold. You do a color hold with a clipping mask.
Yeah.
And I love the
I need to
neon
learn how to do
brushes.
that.
I love. It's easy. You just put a layer above the inks and make it a clipping mask, and then just choose your color over your lines.
And it stays within the contained area.
You just color over the ink lines that you want to turn into a different color. That's it.
That's so cool.
Okay, I'll have to.
That's your color.
That's very, very
look
cool.
into that. I have to look into that.
I would tell you, Procreate is one of the coolest programs in terms of stylus directly on a drawing pad to emulate traditional media. I haven't found anything better.
No lag time and
no.
Oh no.
And I love the neon brush because you can put the neon brush underneath the layer that you're working on. Say if you want to put an aura around something. In this case, I'm thinking about the special effects I did for the artwork that I did for the next one of the upcoming podcasts, and I wanted to have a glow. So say you have a figure, and you go on a layer underneath that figure, and you take your neon brush underneath that figure on that layer, and that you could see the glow come out from around him. It's very, very cool.
Very cool.
I love it.
Yeah, I usually do that something like that with layers and the layers controls, where you can put a drop shadow or a glow, an outer glow or an inner glow. So I usually do that in Photoshop that way.
In Photoshop, Barb, would you be willing to even in one of our process shows maybe just demonstrate some of this stuff,
some of these special effects?
Like do a clipping mask and do a color hold and do all this, and just to show people this is kind of quick solutions, because sometimes when we describe things they sound more complicated than they really are, but they're really not. It's literally just a couple of steps and boom, you got it. And show don't tell. Go ahead Aaron, what were you gonna say?
This is one of the images I was working on.
Okay.
Oh, wow, that's great.
That's very cool.
Beautiful.
And that's
nice.
That's the flat colors. That's the line work.
Oh, that's
and
beautiful,
I
man.
put the block. I was going to. You can do a rock texture. You just you can find rocks, textures of stone, and put them over the top. I didn't. I think I forgot to. Oh well, whatever. This is the background. All of that. That's the folder. But they're just, this is on multiply 30. This would be like taking, I don't know if you can see it. A few shadows of multiply, but that's just adding the shadows in. And then the shadows of the main character.
Oh, that is so cool.
Very cool. Wow, that totally changes it.
Now the light is very subtle. This is on the main character. Then the background light, it's purple. And then you just do the tentacle light, which is very subtle.
Tentacle light. That's.
And then you just do the light. Yeah, the tentacle light. This is a tentacle light, and all that.
Something I didn't think I hear in a sentence.
Yeah,
I know. Right?
To get a light like that to shine, so it looks like it's actually illuminating. You just do a brush, and then that's just like a brush stroke. These are the highlights, just white highlights on there. And then that's my name. And then this is a gradient. I added a little gradient on the side to darken it. And that's it. Sometimes I will do, to tie everything together, you can actually, if you want, I'll just do this for fun. Let's say I want a dark purple. You can just make another layer and just take the whole thing and just drop it in so it's completely purple. And then you just you could probably put on multiply and tone it down to about 11%, and that's going to start to tie it all together.
Sure.
Like that. So you can do stuff like that. I've done that before, but that's really it. It's just shadows, light, and then highlights, and that's
shadows, light, highlights, and overlays.
Yeah, that's how I do it. So
very nice. See, you got a preview of upcoming process shows, right?
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah.
gonna be, and writers, don't be disappointed because we can like watch you guys argue about, no, that's an adjective, that's not an adverb.
Yeah.
It's a gerund, not a gerantive. Perfect.
Well, you guys could,
participle.
especially you and your writing partner can talk about what kind of things you bounce off of each other, what themes you're trying to deal with.
That's mostly just Scott
and
telling me, no, that's stupid.
Okay.
Here's a really cool exercise.
Scott,
Here's a really cool exercise for writers is that you have a round robin where you start, you have the basic premise of a story, and then everybody has to come up with a sentence. And then you just keep adding around, going around and around, and you'll build your story sentence by sentence. Everybody gets, so writer one, you start it with one sentence. And then writer two, you add the next sentence and come up with a story by the end of the podcast.
That would be cool too.
That could be very interesting.
Yeah, especially listening to you and Scott go, "No, don't be stupid. That's ridiculous."
Here, I'll show you one. And I'll show you other
We're only halfway through this bourbon.
Yeah. So this is talking about filters, and I talk about this is pencil work. This is the making of my Galleons page. This is an old page. These are old pages I actually got from a book that was actually destroyed. I scanned them in. These are the base colors. And I do very minor highlights on, like, I think those are the highlights. I mean, they're very subtle. But my friend said that the colors are too bright. So I knocked all the colors down 25% of saturation. That's why I got it to look old. And then you want to keep adding it. And so you add another old page over the top. And it adds that. So now it looks like it's aged somewhat.
Yes. Beautiful.
And then you do that, and you want to knock down the saturation by 25%. You can do it even further. I mean, let's just play around with this. So you can
Photoshop is a wonderful tool.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
It's crazy the things.
Yeah,
Hey,
you can take it down.
I
to
know
like
a lot of
black and
stuff,
white.
but I just barely scratched the surface.
Yeah.
Hey, you just Zack Snyder'd your Godwins, man. You took it
black
down.
and white.
Wow.
That
awesome.
You can turn it like that.
Marvel.
Lightness, dark.
Marvel
Yeah.
movie, and wow. Awesome.
Yeah, you can
Very
do all
cool.
of that. And so literally, because that's the base color, once you add that over, and you're going to only have it highlight. And then, of course, you want to add the other page. I've just been messing with the opacity of -25. Get that back to 0. And there's my page again.
Yeah.
And so they print a little darker, but that's it.
Yeah.
And if you look closely at like the grass here, you see that texture. That texture wasn't there before. So the page is adding that texture through it. And then you add the other page over the top, and it accentuates that texture even more.
Yeah.
So that's my idea. I want the page to be textured. So I'm faking the texture in there.
Right.
I do that with a brush or stipple.
Very nice.
So,
Very nice. Good job, Aaron.
So.
Thank you for doing that. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight, and especially our guests. It was great. Barb, thanks for snagging Mike. That was good. That was a good guest.
Interesting.
And anybody else that's from back in the day, and I'll do the same.
I have a list.
Got a Rolodex. Got to flip through the Rolodex.
Yeah, I have a list.
So we'll do that again, and we have a Kickstarter up, so go check out our Kickstarter.
It's doing pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. And
last I looked, it was halfway there. Yep.
Good deal. So go support the Kickstarter. This is important. We gotta show solidarity for Silverline. But as we close each broadcast, what do we like to say, everybody? We like to say,
"Make mine Silverline."
Make mine
Silverline.
Silverline.
Hi, I'm Greg Horn. Make mine Silverline.